In the heart of Dongshan City, where skyscrapers kissed the sky and neon lights painted the streets, lived Chen Hai, a man whose imagination fueled bestsellers. His novels transported readers to distant realms, but little did he know that his own life was about to become the ultimate plot twist. It was a crisp autumn evening in 2022 when Chen sat at his mahogany writing desk, surrounded by shelves laden with leather-bound books. His latest manuscript lay half-finished, ink drying on the parchment. Outside, rain tapped against the window, a soothing rhythm that matched the cadence of his thoughts. And then it happened, the impossible. In the corner of his study, where a potted fern once stood, a dungeon door materialized. Its wood was ancient, etched with symbols that seemed to pulse with hidden energy. Chen blinked, rubbed his eyes, and blinked again. But the door remained an enigma in his otherwise mundane existence. The world had changed since 2012, the year when dungeon entrances sprouted across continents like cosmic mushrooms. Governments convened emergency meetings, scientists scratched their heads, and conspiracy theorists whispered about parallel dimensions. But 5 truths emerged, immutable as the stars. 1. Indestructible entrances. No matter what humanity threw at them, bulldozers, dynamite, or prayers, the dungeon doors stood firm. They defied logic, anchored to our reality like stubborn ghosts. 2. Trading with the dungeon. Chen learned this the hard way. If you entered a dungeon and retrieved an item, a sword, a gem, a cryptic scroll, you had to trade it within a specific time frame. Otherwise, the door swung wide open, and the dungeon's denizens spilled forth like a dark tide. 3. Survivors grew stronger. Those who braved the dungeons returned changed. Their bodies adapted, muscles denser, senses keener. Chen imagined the thrill of newfound strength coursing through his veins. Perhaps he'd write about it someday. 4. Monster rewards. The deeper you ventured, the more treacherous the creatures. But the loot. Oh, the loot. Enchanted artifacts, rare metals, and secrets older than civilization. Chen's fingers itched to chronicle these wonders. 5. Unbeatable bosses. At each dungeon's core lurked a boss, a cosmic anomaly, a living paradox. Bullets bounced off them, bombs fizzled. The world's most potent weapon, a nuclear warhead, couldn't scratch their hide. Yet they existed, inscrutable and invincible. As days turned into weeks, more dungeons sprouted like mushrooms after rain. Society adapted. Citizens read weekly reports, tracking legendary adventurers like stock prices. Becoming an adventurer was akin to winning the lottery, a ticket to wealth, fame, and the occasional dragon slaying. But Chen hesitated. He remembered the grim statistics from 5 years ago. Beginner-ranked dungeons claimed a 50% death rate. Bones of dreamers lay scattered, their ambitions swallowed by darkness. Chen, already wealthy from his novels, wondered if the risk was worth it. Yet destiny knocked insistently. The dungeon door beckoned, a gateway to realms uncharted. Chen stood at the precipice, torn between safety and curiosity. His pen, once wielded to create fiction, now hovered over a blank page. Perhaps within those depths lay inspiration for his next masterpiece, a tale of survival, friendship, and magic. And so, our protagonist stepped forward, the line between fiction and reality blurring. The adventure began. The best-selling novelist turned reluctant hero, ink-stained fingers gripping the doorknob. Behind him, the rain whispered secrets, and the world held its breath. Chapter 2, The Reluctant Adventurer. Chen Hai, the best-selling novelist, stood before the ancient dungeon door that had materialized in his study. Its wood bore the weight of centuries, and its symbols whispered forgotten secrets. The rain outside tapped a rhythm of uncertainty against the window, mirroring the turmoil within Chen's mind. 5 years ago, beginner-ranked dungeons had claimed a 50% death rate. Bones of dreamers lay buried, their ambitions shattered. Chen, already wealthy from his novels, hesitated. Becoming an adventurer seemed too risky. But destiny had other plans. As an ordinary citizen, Chen knew that dungeons held mysterious treasures. Those who braved them returned stronger, their bodies infused with magic. Yet, he wasn't desperate for wealth or fame. His bestsellers had already secured his place in literary history. Then came the notification on his phone, a staff member named Shanghai arrested for a murder linked to the dungeon entrance. Chen's pulse quickened. He'd be a sheep entering a tiger's mouth, fodder for corporations seeking profit. But there was more at stake. Dungeon entrances could be used only around 10 times. If Chen survived, they'd send supervisors. If not, he'd die before the dungeon's usage reached 0. Leaving it unexplored wasn't an option. The entrance would expand, monsters flooding the city. Death by negligence meant 20 years in jail. Chen weighed his options. Fleeing the city seemed sensible, leaving the police to handle it. But curiosity gnawed at him. What if the survival rate was higher? Could he strategize? He pulled up his phone, matching the dungeon door symbols to images online. The dungeon was level 2, a mere hunting ground. Tension coiled in his chest. Dungeon levels correlated with entrance size. Chen's small home meant beginner rank, a chance for survival. He envisioned himself, a reluctant adventurer, ink-stained fingers, gripping a sword, stepping into the unknown. And so, Shanghai, the novelist, made his choice. The line between fiction and reality blurred. The dungeon awaited, a canvas for his next tale. For within its depths lay not just treasure, but the essence of life itself. 2 days had passed since the dungeon door appeared in Shanghai's study. The delivery man's question still echoed in his mind. Did you discover a wild dungeon? Chen's heart raced. How could the delivery man know? He stammered, claiming the chainmail suit was for a game with friends. The man's silence unnerved him. Now, clad in the chainmail, Chen stood before the door. The weight of the suit pressed on his chest. He'd also bought Firefighter X, a protective layer that wouldn't hinder his movements. His determination burned in his eyes. He reached out, fingers trembling, and pushed through the threshold. The desert marvel of the dungeon unfolded before him, a forest of twisted trees, their leaves shimmering like emerald blades. This was his first time. His enemy? Probably a gnoll, according to the official information. Chen's heart raced, but the chainmail reassured him. He activated the status window, a translucent blue screen hovering before his eyes. His attributes materialized. Strength, 9. Agility, 9. Physique, 10. Wisdom, 16. Charm, 11. Chen pondered. Average people hovered around 10. 8 was trash, 14, commendable. But wisdom at 16? Unexpected. Wisdom seemed useless at level 1, overshadowed by strength and agility. Yet here he was, grinning at his stats. He shook off the cockiness. Survival was paramount. He clicked on the mission prompt. The blue screen shifted, revealing his challenge, Mulrock's hunt season. The name sent shivers down his spine. Mulrocks were no mere gnolls, they were cunning, scaled beasts with venomous fangs. His second objective, exit the dungeon. Simple, right? Chen's breath hitched. The countdown began. He stepped deeper into the forest, senses alert. The rustle of leaves, the distant growl, it all felt surreal. But this was no novel. This was life, and the stakes were real. Shanghai, the reluctant adventurer, took a deep breath. The line between fiction and reality blurred further. The forest whispered secrets, and the gnolls awaited. His ink-stained fingers clenched the hilt of a sword he'd found, a weapon forged from imagination and necessity. Shanghai's heart raced as the Mulrock materialized before him. But his shock wasn't solely due to the creature's reptilian form. It was the irony, the cosmic joke, that gnawed at him. You see, Chen was allergic to seafood, and here he stood, facing a scaled predator that could easily pass for a distant cousin of a lobster. Hiding behind the bushes, Chen weighed his options. The Mulrock's venomous fangs dripped anticipation. He'd read about their agility, the way they danced through combat, sidestepping attacks like seasoned fighters. But Chen was no seasoned fighter. He was a novelist, ink-stained fingers now gripping a sword. He lunged from the bushes, blade slicing the air. But the mole rock was no ordinary beast. It saw his attack coming, a flicker of intelligence in its eyes. It dodged, and Chen's blade met only empty space. Panic surged. A single mole rock had nearly bested him. What if its team attacked? Survival seemed unlikely. Then, like a glitch in reality, the blue screen appeared. Chen had leveled up. His adventure rating increased by 2, and he received a title, Can Fight Mole Rock One-on-One. He scoffed. Ridiculous. But titles mattered less than survival. He ended the exploration for the day, vowing to return stronger. Outside the dungeon, Chen felt exhaustion settle, a half-year's worth of exercise, compressed into one day. He needed a private coach, attribute upgrades. He'd challenge this dungeon again when he was ready. But then, the blue screen blinked to life once more, mission complete. You must be Ching, she said, her voice crisp. The trainer's waiting for you in the VIP room. Follow me. Chen marveled at the gym's sleek interior. Dongshan, a small city, boasted a fitness instructor specializing in body training for new adventurers. Among the 6 foundation attributes, strength, agility, and endurance could be honed through training. Chen's mind raced. The cost of a year's training rivaled his new book's copyright fee. But if it made him stronger, perhaps the investment was worth it. The receptionist eyed him. Any gym experience? She asked. Chen shook his head. She frowned. Why spend so much on a coach? She pressed. Normal training can grant foundation rights. Her gaze bore into him, probing. Was he already an adventurer? Chen deflected with a smile. I'm rich, he said. And I have goals. But the receptionist wasn't fooled. Rich enough to hire a professional trainer, she mused. Yet you harbor adventure dreams. They neared the VIP room. Chen's heart raced. The best trainer in the city awaited. He imagined a hulking figure, muscles rippling. Instead, a handsome man stood before him. Chen blinked. Not what he'd expected. Then, a giant loomed behind, the man who'd booked the expensive lessons. Chen's nerves tightened. The trainer's sudden appearance unnerved him. Do you truly want to become an adventurer? The man asked. Chen hesitated. The gym instructor, an A-ranked AAA, was no ordinary coach. His gaze held fire, challenging Chen's resolve. Chen Hai lay on the bench, the weight pressing down like the weight of his own doubts. The trainer counted his reps, 30 kilograms, 5 times. Chen's arms trembled, and he gasped for breath. His single maximum weight? 35 kilograms. The verdict, bad. Shocked, he'd thought himself weak, but this revelation hit harder than a mole rock's tail. The handsome trainer leaned over, assessing Chen's foundation. 9th strength attribute, he said. Below average. Chen's cheeks flushed. Average adventurers could lift 50 kilograms with ease. He was far from average. The trainer, a student of the legendary trainer didn't mince words. Catching up with S-ranked substitutes? Impossible. Chen swallowed. How long would it take? The trainer's answer cut through the gym's air. Train every day for a season. Reach 11 in all 3 foundation attributes. When that number appeared on his status window, he'd become an adventurer, stronger than most. Chen nodded, determination flaring. Train me, he said, enthusiasm bubbling. Season standard. And the fee? The trainer waved it off. Transfer it. The handsome man introduced himself as Xu Mao, a contracted adventurer. Chen, ink-stained and resolute, revealed his identity, best-selling author. After the training report, they headed to a fast food joint. Su leaned in. You want trainer and lessons, he said. Effective, but expensive. He advised Chen, don't rush. Train at home or find a private coach. Cheaper, stronger. Su's wisdom settled like dust on Chen's resolve. Chen Hai listened intently as the trainer explained the intricacies of adventure titles. When adventurers first entered a dungeon, a corresponding title would be generated based on their status window. These titles came with benefits, special boosts, but also drawbacks. If an adventurer chose to equip a title, others would notice it. Hunters, especially those specializing in low-ranked dungeons, kept an eye out for suspicious individuals with titles. If someone caught their attention, they'd perform a natural check. If the person turned out to be an adventurer, the hunter would track them, eventually leading to the discovery of wild dungeon entrances. Su, observing Chen's lack of reaction, cleared his suspicion. To Su, Chen was just a rich, weak author planning to become an adventurer. No value there. But Chen's mind raced. He'd lucked out by not quitting his title. It was dumb and embarrassing, but today's lunch had revealed its importance. The contract with the gym trainer, a famous best-selling author, was signed. Chen's wealth and motivation fueled his desire to become stronger and enter the adventure industry. The receptionist chimed in, noting that Chen hadn't requested any special lessons. She didn't suspect he'd discovered a dungeon entrance that needed raiding within a month. The girl, the trainer's assistant, agreed. Chen's chances of being an adventurer or discovering a wild dungeon entrance were very low. The receptionist led him toward the document, and as the trainer and Su conversed, Chen didn't appear like a newbie who'd discovered a dungeon entrance. His eyes hadn't fixated on the title above his head. Su assured the trainer that there was no need to pay attention to Chen. As Chen signed the contract, the assistant handed him the document to keep, and the trainer announced they'd proceed to the physical test. The scene shifted. Chen found himself on a treadmill, heart pounding. The trainer's words cut through his determination. As expected, "You're physically weak. No speed test for the next week, only strength and fitness training." The trainer's enthusiasm was contagious. "When are you free?" he asked. Chen replied, "Any time." As the trainer left, he instructed Chen to be there by 10 a.m. tomorrow and advised against oily breakfasts. Chen lay on his bed, contemplating his pathetic skills. It dawned on him that all adventure-related services flowed through these centers, the chainmail he'd bought included. Luck had favored him. Buying armor and weapons from the same store would have been too obvious. He'd underestimated the risks of the adventure profession. It was time to change his plan. The dungeon shifted around Chen, its walls whispering secrets. He'd originally wanted to train more than challenge, but the real world proved cruel, a labyrinth of traps for lower-level adventurers. Luck had favored him today, but tomorrow might be different. He needed to level up. Checking his stats, he noted his exit condition: 1 pair of Molrock's eyes. The beast he'd killed yesterday, could he use its eyes? He approached the deceased Molrock, its organs devoured, but the eyes remained intact. No need to fight today. He'd stroll, record the landscape. Then, a Molrock appeared behind him. Relief washed over him. It was just one. A mere mare. Easily defeated. But his relief turned to panic as 2 Molrocks attacked. He couldn't handle both. Chen ran, breath ragged. The chase seemed endless. Finally, they all slowed, gasping. The Molrock's anger flared, and it yelled. Chen laughed, declaring his impending doom. But then he pointed out something: the separation. His face twisted, maniacal. He swung, killing the beast in one blow. 2 more Molrocks leaped from the bushes. But Chen was no longer afraid. He stood alone, ready for the fight. After completing the task, he exited, waiting for the reward. The blue screen popped up, announcing his performance as expected. But no award. Infuriated, he blamed the beginner-ranked dungeon's low drop rate. How did other adventurers earn money? There must be some common sense he lacked. The next day, Chen entered the gym, expecting to find the trainer and Su. But they were absent. The receptionist explained that Su had gone to a neighboring city and would return in a few days. As for the trainer, he had an important task and would be back at noon. Chen proceeded to the VIP room for his physical training. Both the trainer and Su commented on his intensity, the way he'd trained during their absence. Chen pushed himself hard, determined to raise his strength. If he maintained the standard, he might reach level 11 for strength, agility, and physique. Perhaps even level 12 after a season. Su interjected, suggesting the trainer recruit Chen. He saw potential, a guy with money and motivation. But the trainer revealed he'd already asked Chen before Su returned. Chen had refused. His plan? To use the black market, become an adventurer, and tackle solo dungeons. Exhausted, Chen lay on the ground. Su approached, appreciating his effort but also expressing concern about potential injuries. Was Chen planning to become an adventurer this year? Chen explained that time was of the essence. Waiting too long would strain his finances. Su agreed. After training, Chen ate his lunch, contemplating the trainer's recruitment attempt. He needed to find the right moment to act. Su interrupted, asking why he stared at his food. Was he lost in thought? Chen replied, feigning fatigue. Su warned against overloading, real injuries could happen. Chen's mind raced. Adventure awaited, but the risks were real. The protagonist nodded, recognizing the dangers of overtraining. He promised to slow down. Then, Chen turned to Su with a question burning in his mind. Had Su earned back his initial investment in the adventure profession? Su's reply was measured. It was still early, but based on his current progress, he'd likely recoup it after reaching level 11. Chen's shock was palpable. Su elaborated, low-level adventurers, especially those from level 1 to 5, had it easy. With veterans leading, exit missions were manageable, low-risk affairs. Those without ambition chose this path. But from level 6 to 10, the difficulty spiked. Monster information became more valuable. Survival chances weren't high, but careful adventurers could still thrive. And then came level 11, the turning point. Dungeon difficulty escalated, and relaxation ceased. But it was also when earnings began. Su emphasized the need to increase compatibility at all costs. Equipment, artifacts, skill books, all sold at a premium to enhance survival chances. Chen, still grappling with the revelation, asked a crucial question: why hadn't they prepared harder during the earlier levels? Su's answer was multifaceted. Officially, the Adventure Association didn't force adventurers into dungeons. Many chose to treat it as a temporary venture or return to normal life. As Chen absorbed this wisdom, he realized the adventure profession was far more complex than he'd imagined. The sands of destiny shifted, and Chen Hai, ink-stained and contemplative, prepared for the next chapter, the one where he'd earn back his investment and more. Chen absorbed the valuable information. The adventure profession was more complex than he'd imagined. He hadn't found much on the adventure forums, because most adventurers made money by selling information. But there was a risk: low-level adventurers discovered by sellers might end up dead. What shocked him even more was that rewards came only from clear missions. Chen prepared to enter the dungeon, armed with an axe. Money wasn't an issue, and selling adventure slots was risky. Soloing this dungeon seemed like the best choice. But what about his future? Should he continue as an adventurer? Su's teachings echoed in his mind: collect information first. Chen was confident he could clear the dungeon. The blue screen popped up, revealing the exit condition. This time, no fighting was needed. Su's wisdom, Venus, Basic, and Common, guided him. Chen had even bought a drone for support. Solo exploration was efficient, but finding the lake could take time. And then, a horde of mole rocks appeared. One spotted the drone. Chen stared at the screen, shock coursing through him. A new type of monster, bigger, stronger. Not the normal mole rock he'd encountered before. Fear gripped him. The sands of destiny shifted, and Chen Hai, ink-stained and trembling, faced the unknown. But he focused on finding the lake first, planning to deal with the orange murloc after completing the exit mission. He could always return to find that orange beast later. As the drone moved forward, they discovered the lake. No wonder the forest was teeming with murlocs. The large lake was their habitat. Suddenly, a red screen appeared, signaling the completion of the exit mission. Chen felt a surge of happiness. But then a warning flashed, the map was changing, and the dungeon rating was increasing. The orange murloc appeared, startling him. With tenacity, it lunged toward Chen. The attack split the drone controller in half, and Chen staggered back from the force. Luck had favored him, he'd reacted quickly. Otherwise, he'd have been severely injured. His broken drone controller saddened him, but now wasn't the time to dwell on it. The orange beast's speed was too fast. He needed to deal with it cautiously. And then, all the other murlocs attacked. In the next panel, blood splattered. Chen's helmet flew, and he found himself on his knees, bloodied. The orange beast seemed disappointed, leaving him with only minor injuries. But Chen pondered, if he'd known what awaited him, he might never have entered this dungeon, never become an adventurer. He'd always desired dungeons, often dreaming of them. But would he become like the main characters in his novels, those who faced countless life-and-death fights, thrilling adventures? Fear gripped him. He considered himself a coward, unable to fight well. But he couldn't die here. Determination surged within him. He swings his axe and slit one beast in half as he fights the smaller murloc. He thinks what he can do, and how should he proceed now? Suddenly he remembers his title and shout to use the title can fight murloc one-on-one. The blue screen appears and explains the effect of the title, which are automatically search for nearby strongest murloc. User equipped with title, obtain targets, strength, agility, and sense, and his attributes increase as his strength increase by 1, agility by 8 and sense by 6, and he swings his X and splits the beast in half. He also acknowledges how his body has become lighter and he feels stronger, and not just that, the beast movement seems to have become slower, and he wondered, did his vision also become better? With determination in his eyes, he walks towards the orange beast, grabbing one of the spears, and challenges the orange beast as he is the only one remaining. Then the scene shifts as the protagonist is drinking a potion with bruises all over his body. Suddenly they all are healed and he feels refreshing. After some time, he wakes up and he marvels how he is already healed. He opens up the status window and see how his sense has increased a little, which was unexpected for him, and he clicks on the exit mission challenge, and exit mission challenge appears to survive for 3 minutes. While being hunted by abnormal strong murloc, and the clearance mission states to destroy murlocs hatching pond. Protagonist gets up and states that the clearance mission is not something he can handle now, so he exits. The dungeon entrance loomed larger as Chen passed through. He reached out, but his hand met an invisible barrier, a reflection of his insufficient level. The blue screen confirmed it, he couldn't enter this upgraded dungeon. Shocked, he realized the previous exit mission had come from a higher-level dungeon, explaining the difficulty spike and the generous reward. The scene shifted. Chen worked out, Su watching. The new guy, Chen, had surpassed expectations. 1 year's training condensed into less than 2 months. Su marveled at Chen's progress. His training regimen would send others to the ICU, yet Chen walked like a normal person. His physique was astounding, and his strength, 16 or 18, maybe higher. Su tossed a water bottle, congratulating Chen. His stats likely reached level 12. With his current physique, he could handle newbie dungeon exit missions. But signing with the gym? Chen hesitated. He didn't want to be an adventurer bound by contracts. Su sighed, hoping they could explore dungeons together as colleagues. Chen disagreed, they could still read dungeons together. And as for buying dungeon slots, Chen planned to do that anyway. Suggestions, Su? Su's recommendation echoed in Chen's mind. If he wanted to buy an adventure slot through the black market, he should choose a lower-ranking dungeon entrance with guarantees provided by the United Alliance or their own operations. The mention of the specialized alliance piqued his curiosity. Was it the largest and most specialized group? Su explained that adventure slot trading carried risks for both buyers and sellers. Sellers feared veterans posing as newbies, while buyers worried about sellers vanishing after payment. But the specialized alliance was different. Despite their high commission, they were trustworthy, especially for adventure slot-related business. Chen understood. After checking the entire Zhangzhou, he found the only slightly reliable seller. They set up a meeting 2 days later in the city park. Adventure awaited, and Shanghai, ink-stained and resolute, prepared for the next chapter. The protagonist's phone pinged, and another person shouted to announce their presence. Chen asked about the person's identity and inquired about their name. The Wolverine-looking man introduced himself as the dungeon entrance owner and seller, Old Driver. They exchanged pleasantries, and Old Driver urged Chen to hurry. They were about to sign a contract, and afterward, he'd lead the group into the raid. A demon-like man appeared, drawing a pentagon on paper. He was the Unchia Alliance contractor, responsible for providing the contract details. The contract had 3 parts. 1. Buyer's final payment, deposited in the designated amount provided by them. 2. Seller's assistance, helping the group complete the designated service. 3. Safety agreement, buyer must avoid erratic behavior in the dungeon, and the seller cannot ignore dangerous situations or use violence against the buyer. The specific dungeon entrance location must remain undisclosed. Questions were invited, but the group had none. The contract was established, and suddenly, everyone received a magic circle on their arms. Old Driver instructed them to shout "status window," and they complied. Personal adventure information appeared, including Foundation attributes. Swiping down revealed their missions. The content of the status window can only be seen by the adventurers, so there's no need to worry about personal information being exposed. Suddenly, the shady-looking partner instructs everyone to report their exit missions for sorting. Fatty looks disappointed as his attributes are very low. Our protagonist checks the blue screen and sees the challenge level. His exit mission? To hear a